Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to create the face frame drawing. Alright, so on the screen here you see a 3D model of our cabinet. Alright, kind of the basic cabinet, basic structure of it, and the face frame. So if I click on the face frame, let's see if I can get this to move out. So this is the face frame. So this is the component that we need to draw. It's made up of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components. Those components are called stiles and rails. And so let's get set up for it. What I'm going to do here is a image of what we're going to be drawing. It's a sketch, right? We're going to create the drawings, just kind of a place to get started, kind of understand what your drawing is going to eventually look like. All right, so we have 24 inches in height, 14 inches in the width of the face frame. Just kind of review, here's our scaling. Scaling is a 1/4 inch equals 1 inch, so we can fit it on a piece of paper. Or if you have some graph paper typically is a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch, so one box is equal to 1 inch by 1 inch. All right, some scaling that we need to consider. So if you do not have graph paper, our project is 24 inches high. If we divide it by a 1/4 inch scale, all right, that's going to be 6 inches. That'll be our height. Our width is 14. Here's our scaling. Our width of our drawing is going to be 3.5. Here's some other values that eventually will come up. 1/2 inch is 3/8 scale, or ends up being a 3/8 inch for a 1/4 inch scale. 5 inches, all right, we need to know that value, and if we figure out our scaling, that'd be 1 1/4 inch. And I'm not sure if this is going to be relevant or not, but it's there. But 11 inches is a value that we may or may not run into, and that scaling ends up being 2 3/4 inches. All right, so let's set up our piece of paper here. Now I have graph paper, so it's a little easier to work with, but what I'm going to do is just kind of find the center of my pages visually, and I'm going to count up 12 boxes. Okay, again, what I'm trying to do is find the center and just center my drawing. So I'm going to count up 12 boxes, and then I'm going to go over here to the left 7 boxes and put a little dot. Okay, and then from that dot I could then count over 14 boxes. Okay, that's if I have graph paper. And then I could find my other spots around the page. If you don't have graph paper, and I'm going to make this drawing like I don't have graph paper, what I want you to do is just start roughly right about there on your page. So if I back out, you can see roughly right there. We shouldn't run into any problems creating this. You might want to just take a ruler and just make sure you have 6 inches in height to fit it in. Okay. All right, so I'll give you a minute here to kind of find those 4 corners of the face frame. What corners am I talking about? That corner, upper right, lower. Okay, lower right, right there. Find those spots on your paper, and then we'll continue from there. All right, so I found my spots, and I just went ahead and drew my lines, connected some of those dots I did not connect across here. All right, so we have a little bit further detail on that. So let's take a look at this. All right, here is my sketch again. All right, I don't have it labeled here, but 1.5 inches, just like it was in our previous drawing. All right, so we're gonna have 1.5 inch space, okay? Each one of these members of our face frame, so if I go back to my 3D drawing here, 3D model, each one of these members is 1.5 inches in width, okay? So I'm going to remember to do that. So these are 1.5 inches wide, okay? All right, so let's start laying that out. Let's go back to my graph paper, going back to my scaling down here in the lower left-hand corner. 1.5 inches is 3/8 inches on my ruler. All right. What I'm going to do here is mark out, just kind of put some dots here, mark out. So 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to take my ruler and mark and put a dot kind of in this spot right here. And then I'm going to measure over here 3/8 and put a dot. Okay. And eventually I'll have a dot up there. That's going to help me out. So again, 3/8. Okay. Or actually a box and a half if you have graph paper. So let's get those spots marked out. And then I'm going to stop, and you can do that as well. And I'm going to draw the bottom portion. All right, so you see I went ahead here a little bit, and again I measured from the lower right hand corner and moved over to the left a box and a half or 3/8 of an inch, and then I went up a box and a half or 3/8 of an inch. Okay, and then I made this horizontal line coming across, and then I have my same dimensions, 3/8 over from the left, 3/8 inches above. Okay, what I went ahead and done here is included this member of the face frame. Since I already had it marked, I'm just going to transfer that line all the way up, just like I did over here. Okay, all right, stop the video and then let's get that portion done. All right, so I went ahead and made those lines here, and again I went ahead and created the bottom rail and the top rail, and again each one of these members is 1.5 inches wide, or as we draw them 3/8 inches apart, or a box and a half on graph paper. Okay, so let's take a look at which ones I just drew. I drew this one right here and then the bottom one. Okay, so once you stop the video here, and then I'll eventually go on and make the middle one, and we'll get the detail for that. All right, moving on. All right, what I went ahead and done is created this middle rail, right? There's that technical term again, that's called a rail. And if we take a look at our 3D model here, this is the one that we just drew. All right, we have a space here of 5 inches, and this is going to be the opening for the drawer. Now you notice that we're only creating a 2D drawing, and because we're only doing a 2D drawing because of the thickness is implied. So many of the components in our drawing, in our project I should say, is the same thickness. So we just imply it. So when we come to drawing, that's all we need to do is a two-dimensional drawing. All right, so again, we have 5 inches between, okay, 5 inches between these two lines right here. Okay, that's the opening where the drawer is going to go. Also, here's our scaling again. All right, that opening would be actually 1.25 inches measurement from here to here. I listed 5 because that's the true measurement. All right, so why don't you stop the video and let's get caught up. All right, so let's take a look at the detail that I added. All right, so some of this information is something we've already talked about, but I do want you to include the 24-inch dimension over here for the height of our face frame, and then of course the width of 14. Okay, that goes from the outer edge to the outer edge. Okay, this is the drawer opening, and I do want you to include all the information. So essentially you're going to replicate what I have here. Okay, so we have a 5-inch opening for the drawer. This is a door area or storage area, and that has 11 inches in width. Now we didn't really need to measure anything for this 11 inches. It just happened to work out that way. So we didn't really have to talk about that, but let's include it in our drawing as well. All right, so there's going to be a little bit more detail to come up, but why don't you get caught up? All right, just to add a little bit more detail on our drawing, I do want you to include this. I did this in different colors so we can see it. So this horizontal member we're going to call rail C. It's the third member in the drawing here of the 5, and then of another horizontal rail D, horizontal rail E. These ones that go vertical are called stiles. Okay, these vertical members, style A we're going to call that, and then style B. So A, B, I usually have the stiles go in sequence here, and then rail C, D, and E. What we're going to do next here is create a parts list, but why don't you get caught up on this labeling, and then we'll move on. All right, next we're going to create a parts list. All right, I want you to create a table much like you see here. All right, so over here on the left-hand side, here's the parts, the 5 parts. So our heading is part, style A, style B, rail C, D, and E. And then we have T, W, and L on the heading above there. What is T, W, and L? See if you can focus on that. T is thickness, W is width, and length, okay? So this is going to give us a detailed list of the individual part and its dimensions. So once you go ahead on a separate piece of paper now, create this table, and then we'll talk about filling it in. All right, so let's talk about the dimensions of each one of these parts. So we can kind of figure out which components have the 24-inch dimension. So the stiles are going to be 24 inches in length. Okay, we kind of know that this is 1.5 inches already, and then we'll talk about the thickness. So if we go back to my 3D model here, so the 3 dimensions that we need to understand here is, all right, on this particular component we have the width, all right, and the length. Okay, the length is going left to right, the width is going to be the from top to bottom. And then let's see if I can click on this. I'm trying to click on that surface there. Let's see if I can do, for some reason it's giving me a hard time to click on that surface, but this top edge is the thickness. Okay, all right, just so you understand here, so when I zoom in to my table, all right, this is a list of the dimensions for each one of those parts. All right, so T is always going to be 1, okay? And we'll talk more about T later, but that's the thickness, okay? The width in this case with all these parts are going to be 1.5 inches in width, then the length is going to be different between the stiles and rails. So a lot of commonality here, but nonetheless, let's fill this out. All right, so moving on to some calculations here. I want you to include this on a separate piece of paper. So if we take a look at this table here, I'm going to zoom out here so you can see most of it, and then I'll zoom back in to do exactly. So I do want you to list out each one of these components and then determine the number of board feet for each one of those components, and then eventually add up each one of those and find the total board feet. So if we take a look at the first one here, here's style A. The formula is T times W times L divided by 144. We substitute in T, W, and L from our previous chart. And then once we do that calculation, we get 36 divided by 144. And if we do that math in our calculator, we get 0.25 board feet. Make sure you have the units there. Now style A and style B are the same. So that is just a replication of the previous one. All right, now moving on to rail C, D, and E. Obviously those 3 will be the same, but I want you to write those out. I kind of filled or kind of left the blanks, so to speak. You fill in the blanks to calculate, okay? And then ultimately, what is the total board feet? That will be the sum of each one of the components, style A, B, rail C, D, and E. So here's our formula. Total board feet is equal to style A plus style B plus rail C plus rail D plus rail E. And we're going to put that value right there. Okay? All right, so to wrap this up, watch the video and I will show you how to put these 3 into one document and then save as a PDF. Okay, so eventually we're going to take a picture of each one of those 3, put it in a document, save it as a PDF, upload it to Schoology. Okay.